During the American Revolutionary War, the quest for independence demanded not just brute force, but also clever strategies and covert operations. Among the most notable was the work of the Culper Spy Ring, an intelligence network that operated with remarkable secrecy and ingenuity. This network played a pivotal role in gathering crucial information about British troop movements, military plans, and logistical operations. Its members, many of whom were ordinary civilians, risked their lives to relay intelligence to General George Washington. The methods they used were groundbreaking for their time. Invisible ink allowed messages to be hidden in seemingly innocuous documents, while codes and ciphers added an additional layer of security. Perhaps one of the most ingenious techniques involved using laundry lines as a signaling system. For example, Anna Strong, one of the Ring's key members, would hang a black petticoat on her clothesline to indicate a nearby meeting point, with additional white handkerchiefs providing further details. The Culper Spy Ring's effectiveness was partly due to its compartmentalization. Each member knew only as much as was necessary to fulfill their role. This minimized the damage if any individual was captured or compromised. The stakes were incredibly high. Spies caught by the British often faced execution. Despite these risks, the Ring successfully operated in and around New York City, a major hub of British military activity. One of their most significant contributions was uncovering a plot by Benedict Arnold, a high-ranking American officer, to surrender West Point to the British. The discovery of this treachery prevented a potentially catastrophic loss for the Continental Army. The Culper Spy Ring's activities were so secretive that many of its members' identities remained unknown for over a century, underscoring the enduring mystery and intrigue surrounding their work. Almost a century later, during the American Civil War, a very different kind of covert operation took place. The Confederate States of America, seeking innovative ways to counter the Union's naval superiority, developed the CSS Hunley, the first combat submarine to successfully sink an enemy warship. The Hunley represented a revolutionary leap in naval warfare, combining ingenuity with desperation. Constructed in Mobile, Alabama, and later transported to Charleston, South Carolina, the submarine was a marvel of engineering for its time. It was manually powered by a crew of 8 men who turned a crankshaft connected to its propeller. Though primitive by today's standards, the Hunley was a bold experiment in underwater combat. The Hunley's most famous mission occurred on the night of February 17, 1864. Its target was the USS Housatonic, a Union warship blockading Charleston Harbor. Armed with a spar torpedo, a long pole carrying an explosive charge, the Hunley approached the Housatonic stealthily. Once close enough, the crew detonated the torpedo against the ship's hull, causing a massive explosion that sank the Housatonic in minutes. This marked the first time in history that a submarine successfully sank an enemy vessel during combat. However, the victory was bittersweet. Shortly after the attack, the Hunley and its crew disappeared under mysterious circumstances. For over a century, the fate of the Hunley remained one of the Civil War's enduring mysteries. Some speculated that the submarine was damaged in the explosion, while others believed it was swamped by a rogue wave or suffered from a lack of oxygen. The wreck of the Hunley was finally discovered in 1995, buried under layers of sediment off the coast of Charleston. When the submarine was raised in 2000, researchers began piecing together the story of its final moments. The crew's remains were found still seated at their stations, suggesting they had not tried to escape. This discovery, coupled with forensic analysis, led to new theories about the Hunley's demise. Some researchers believe the shockwave from the torpedo detonation may have incapacitated the crew instantly, while others point to mechanical issues or a lack of air as possible causes. The recovery of the Hunley not only solved a historical mystery, but also provided valuable insights into the challenges of early submarine warfare. It revealed the ingenuity, and determination of those who built and operated the vessel, as well as the incredible risks they faced. Today, the Hunley serves as a powerful reminder of the lengths to which people will go in times of war, blending innovation with a willingness to push the boundaries of what is possible. The story of the Hunley, like that of the Culper Spy Ring, underscores the importance of covert operations and unconventional tactics in shaping the course of history. Both examples highlight how ingenuity and determination can turn the tide of conflict, even in the face of overwhelming odds. During World War II, deception played a critical role in shaping the outcome of the war. One of the most extraordinary examples of this was Operation Fortitude, a meticulously crafted plan designed to mislead the German military about the location of the Allied invasion of Western Europe. As the Allies prepared for the pivotal D-Day invasion, they knew they needed to ensure German forces were unprepared for the true assault on the beaches of Normandy. To achieve this, they created a web of false information, fake armies, and deceptive maneuvers that became one of the greatest military feints in history. The centerpiece of Operation Fortitude was the creation of a fictitious 1st U.S. Army Group, supposedly commanded by General George S. Patton, who was highly regarded by the Germans as one of the Allies' most formidable military leaders. This fake army was stationed in southeastern England, directly across the English Channel from Pas de Calais, the location the Germans believed was the most likely point for an invasion. To reinforce this illusion, the Allies used inflatable tanks, wooden aircraft, and fake landing craft positioned in visible areas to suggest a large military buildup. Additionally, radio operators transmitted fake messages simulating the movements and logistical planning of this phantom force. Even double agents, including the famous Juan Pugil Garcia, codenamed Garbo, fed the Germans false intelligence, further solidifying the deception. The success of Operation Fortitude was profound. The Germans not only believed that the primary invasion would occur at Pas de Calais, but also assumed any attack on Normandy was a diversion. This led them to hold back critical reinforcements during the initial stages of the Normandy invasion. Even after D-Day, the Germans delayed moving their forces from Calais for weeks, allowing the Allies to establish a foothold in France and begin their march toward liberation. Without this elaborate ruse, the Normandy landings might have faced insurmountable resistance, potentially altering the course of the war. Another remarkable example of deception during World War II was the Ghost Army, a U.S. Army unit officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. This highly secretive unit, composed of artists, engineers, and sound technicians, specialized in tactical deception. Its mission was to mislead enemy forces by creating the illusion of large troop movements and battlefield activity where none existed. Using inflatable tanks, fake artillery, and elaborate sound effects, the Ghost Army staged more than 20 deception operations between 1944 and 1945. The Ghost Army's operations were carefully planned and executed. For example, they would use loudspeakers to broadcast pre-recorded sounds of tanks moving, soldiers marching, and construction activity, creating the illusion of a massive force. Visual deception was equally critical. They positioned inflatable tanks and vehicles in strategic locations, often accompanied by real soldiers to lend authenticity. The unit also deployed dummy radio operators, who transmitted phony messages to simulate the presence of large military formations. By mimicking the tactics and movements of real Allied units, the Ghost Army successfully diverted German forces away from critical battle zones. One of their most notable successes occurred during the Battle of the Bulge, where the Ghost Army created the illusion of reinforcements arriving in vulnerable areas, causing the Germans to hesitate in their advance. The secrecy of their work was so complete that the unit's existence was not publicly acknowledged until decades after the war. Today, the Ghost Army is celebrated for its ingenuity and the significant role it played in saving countless lives by reducing direct confrontations with enemy forces. While these efforts of misdirection played out on the battlefields, another secret operation was unfolding in the post-war period, Operation Paperclip. As the Allies advanced into Germany, they discovered that the Nazis had made significant scientific and technological advancements, particularly in rocketry, aviation, and chemical weaponry. The U.S. recognized the strategic value of acquiring this knowledge and the scientists behind it. Thus, Operation Paperclip was born, a clandestine program to bring German scientists to the United States to work on American defense projects. Among the most famous scientists recruited through this program was Wernher von Braun, the architect of the Nazi V-2 rocket, which had terrorized London during the war. Despite von Braun's membership in the Nazi Party and allegations of his involvement in using forced labor for his projects, he became a central figure in the U.S. space program, ultimately leading the development of the Saturn V rocket that propelled the Apollo missions to the moon. Operation Paperclip was controversial, as it involved granting citizenship and protection to individuals who had served a regime responsible for heinous war crimes. However, the program's advocates argued that securing these scientists was essential for national security, particularly in the context of the emerging Cold War and the race for technological superiority with the Soviet Union. Operation Paperclip highlights the moral ambiguities that often accompany wartime and post-war decisions. While the program significantly advanced U.S. aerospace and defense capabilities, it also raised ethical questions about the price of progress and the compromises made in the name of national interest. The legacy of this operation is a testament to the complexities of war, where strategic imperatives often clash with moral considerations. The interplay between deception, innovation, and moral compromise during World War II reveals the multifaceted nature of the conflict. Whether through the strategic brilliance of Operation Fortitude, the creative ingenuity of the Ghost Army, or the controversial pragmatism of Operation Paperclip, the war was shaped not just by battles and alliances but also by the behind-the-scenes efforts to outwit and outmaneuver the enemy. These stories, though often overshadowed by the grand narratives of the war, underscore the critical role of unconventional strategies in achieving victory. During the Vietnam War, the United States conducted a series of covert and unconventional operations that remained shrouded in mystery and controversy. Among these was Operation Menu, a secret bombing campaign launched in 1969 under the Nixon administration. Officially, the U.S. was not conducting military operations in Cambodia, a neutral country, but the dense jungles near the border had become a critical supply route for the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong. This route, part of the infamous Ho Chi Minh Trail, allowed enemy forces to move troops, weapons, and supplies with relative impunity. In response, the U.S. initiated a campaign of targeted bombings to disrupt these supply lines and weaken the North Vietnamese position. The operation was classified, with only a handful of officials aware of its existence. Pilots were instructed to file false flight logs, and the bombings were listed as occurring in South Vietnam rather than Cambodia. The scale of the bombing was enormous. By the time the operation concluded, over 100,000 tons of explosives had been dropped on Cambodian soil. The secrecy surrounding Operation Menu was eventually exposed, leading to widespread condemnation both domestically and internationally. Critics argued that the bombings violated Cambodia's neutrality and caused significant civilian casualties, contributing to the destabilization of the region. This instability would later pave the way for the rise of the Khmer Rouge, a brutal regime that plunged Cambodia into genocide. Despite its controversial nature, Operation Menu reflects the lengths to which the U.S. government was willing to go during the Vietnam War to gain a strategic advantage. The campaign's secrecy highlights the shadowy nature of modern warfare, where operations often unfold far from the public eye and official narratives. While large-scale bombing campaigns, like Operation Menu dominated headlines. Smaller, highly specialized units were also conducting covert operations deep in enemy territory. One such group was the Military Assistance Command, Vietnam Studies and Observations Group, MACV-SOG. This elite unit operated in the most dangerous environments, often crossing into Laos, Cambodia, and North Vietnam despite official denials of such missions. Their tasks included reconnaissance, sabotage, prisoner rescue, and psychological operations designed to confuse and demoralize the enemy. MACV-SOG teams were composed of a mix of U.S. Special Forces and indigenous troops, including Montagnard tribesmen, who were skilled in guerrilla tactics. The missions they undertook were among the riskiest of the war, as they frequently faced overwhelming enemy forces with little hope of reinforcements. Despite these challenges, MACV-SOG achieved remarkable successes. They gathered critical intelligence on enemy movements, disrupted supply chains, and inflicted significant damage on enemy infrastructure. Their ability to operate undetected behind enemy lines made them one of the most feared and respected units of the war. However, the clandestine nature of MACV-SOG's operations came at a cost. The unit suffered high casualty rates, and many of their missions remain classified to this day. Their sacrifices went largely unrecognized during the war, as their work was intentionally kept out of the public spotlight. It was only decades later that the full extent of their contributions began to be acknowledged. MACV-SOG's legacy is a testament to the skill, bravery, and dedication of its members, who carried out their missions in the face of extraordinary danger. While Vietnam saw the rise of covert ground operations, the Cold War introduced a new dimension to secret military activities. One of the most intriguing initiatives of this era was Operation Looking Glass, a program designed to ensure the continuity of command in the event of a nuclear war. Starting in 1961, the U.S. maintained a fleet of airborne command centers that could take control of the country's nuclear arsenal if ground-based facilities were destroyed in a Soviet first strike. These planes, modified Boeing EC-135 aircraft, were equipped with advanced communication systems and staffed by senior military officers. For nearly 3 decades, at least one of these planes was airborne 24/7, ensuring that the president or a designated successor could always issue orders to retaliate in the event of an attack. This continuous operation required a massive logistical effort, with planes regularly refueling in midair and crews rotating in and out of duty. The existence of Operation Looking Glass was a closely guarded secret, as it was a critical component of the U.S.'s nuclear deterrence strategy. The program served as a stark reminder of the high stakes of the Cold War and the ever-present threat of mutually assured destruction. Operation Looking Glass not only demonstrated the technological advancements of the era, but also highlighted the lengths to which the U.S. was willing to go to maintain a strategic advantage. The program's success depended on meticulous planning and execution, reflecting the broader challenges of operating in a constantly evolving geopolitical landscape. Although the threat of nuclear war has diminished since the end of the Cold War, the legacy of Operation Looking Glass continues to influence modern military planning. These covert operations, whether bombing campaigns, elite ground missions, or airborne command centers, illustrate the complexities and moral ambiguities of modern warfare. They reveal a world where decisions are often made in the shadows, driven by a mix of strategic necessity and political calculation. The secrecy surrounding these operations raises important questions about accountability, transparency, and the balance between national security and democratic oversight. The repercussions of these secretive actions often extend far beyond their immediate objectives. In Cambodia, the bombings contributed to long-term instability that affected millions of lives. In Vietnam, the valor of MACV-SOG's members was matched by the heavy toll of their sacrifices, both for them and for the local populations caught in the crossfire. And in the Cold War, The relentless vigilance of Operation Looking Glass reflected a world on the brink of catastrophe, where the slightest misstep could have devastating consequences. Each of these stories underscores the human dimension of covert warfare, from the courage of the individuals who carried out these missions to the civilians whose lives were forever altered by their consequences. They remind us that the costs of war are often hidden, unfolding in ways that may not become apparent until years or even decades later. Yet they also highlight the ingenuity and determination that define the human spirit, even in the most challenging and morally fraught circumstances. The legacy of these operations continues to shape our understanding of history and the nature of conflict. They serve as powerful reminders of the complexities of war and the difficult choices faced by those who navigate its many challenges. As we reflect on these stories, we are reminded of the need for vigilance, compassion, and a commitment to seeking peace in an increasingly interconnected world.